Thank you very much for joining us. We have a full room today, which is fantastic. I'm Christos Harpantidis. I'm heading the External Affairs for Philip Morris International. And I have to start by confessing that I was having a pretty simplified understanding of the Africa continent. And as I travel and visit the countries, understand the culture, understand the economy of these countries, the diversity of them, I have high respect for what Africa is today. Of course, fascinated about the potential of the continent, but also I find the present quite interesting. The last decade was a decade of growth. Actually, Sub-Saharan Africa grew in a higher rate than the world average. The continent came out of the COVID-19 crisis quite fast, and this is because of the great progress on the interregional collaboration among the countries within the region, the improved peace and security, and also the technological advancement. So today, we will have the opportunity to talk about today and the future of the continent, and we have two amazing guests. His Excellency, the Minister of Internal Relationships and Collaboration and Cooperation of South Africa, Minister Ronald Lamola. Thank you very much for visiting, Your Excellency. And Ms. Nangula Uaandja. She is the CEO of Namibia Board for Investment and Development. Dear guests, thank you very much for joining. And allow me to start immediately with you, Your Excellency. This great economic growth of Africa has a plan and has a start. It is the Agenda 2063. And I would invite you to share with us some key milestones, some key achievements that happened in the continent and, of course, in your country the last decade.
Yeah, thank you very much for welcoming us here to this Delphi platform. It's a great honor for me to participate and also for our country. Indeed, the African continent is coming out of age with a number of flagship programs. One of them, the one you have referred to, the Agenda 2063 of the African Union, with its flagship program being the AfCFTA, which is aimed to integrate and boost the African economies on industrialization, manufacturing, and also trade within the African continent, with now about 54 African Union member states. We have about 49 states parties that have ratified and deposited their instrument of ratification into the AfCFTA, which is going to build one of the world's single biggest market and free trade area. The intra-Africa trade area grew as a result by 3.2% in 2023, reaching about $192.2 billion US dollars in terms of trade. So there is no doubt that the current shift towards protectionism by some will speed up Africans' implementation of the AfCFTA towards a 90% tariff-free single market. This is our aim, to continue to integrate, to trade within Africans, but also this gives a platform for us to also exchange ideas and trade with all people of the world. We, in South Africa, have also had about 7 elections, a stable democracy, and in many parts of the southern African tip of the African continent, stable democracies. My sister from Namibia, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Angola, it is relatively stable and open for trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So you give a special focus for the regional coordination and development and the collaboration amongst countries within the continent. Here, your presence here indicates also an opening for more cooperation with Europe, potentially. And I understand that there are the links, but there is huge room for bigger collaboration and growth through the Europe. How do you see this materializing in the coming years?
Yeah, indeed. As you will be aware, South Africa is one of the countries outside Europe that has got a partnership with the European Union. But we also do so through the Southern African region, that partnership. And European countries can be able to trade, participate in this platform with us through the European Union and through the partnership with SADC, but also the partnership that we have as South Africa with the European Union. We've just recently had a summit with the European Union, and it was one of the most successful, with clear goals to achieve industrialization, value add in the continent, and also with a clear commitment from both sides that with the natural resources that Africa is endowed with, particularly the critical minerals, there is a bigger role for the partnership to beneficiate such in the continent, to add value in the continent, and this will then enable us to export a finished product. So we see this as a new revolution, and we can build from this partnership that we have had with the European Union, but also individual states can still be able to engage and find a platform for leverage. So the whole continent, the African continent, if you look at it at the regional level, it has got a market and a population of about 1.3 billion people across the 55 countries. And the combined GDP, when you look at it in terms of the AfCFTA, is estimated at about $3.4 US. So this lead to a potential regional income, a boost of about 7% or 440 billion, with the possibility of lifting about 30 million people out of extreme poverty. So it should not only be looked at just in the tip of South Africa, but in the regional context, there is a lot of collaboration that we see as we build with the European Union that can be leveraged to build on the economies of the two regional bodies.
The numbers are indeed impressive, and the potential is huge. And hopefully today's session is a small contribution in this effort. And as my hat as a European citizen, I'm very happy that this is something that Europe as well needs. Ms. Uaandja, Agenda 2063 is about also diversity in terms of economic growth, and we know that the economies in Africa and sub-Saharan Africa are mainly linked to raw materials and natural resources. How do you see this, the economy growing in other sectors as well?
Thank you very much for having us, and thank you for the question. So Namibia is really like any other African country. And talking about diversification, our board, which was created about 4 years ago by the late president, was really to implement Namibia's diversification strategy. And yes, maybe to leverage first on the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. What we as Africans realize is that trading among ourselves is very, very limited. If you look at the Europeans, the trade among Europeans are somewhere like 70%. The Americans are trading among themselves. The Asians are trading among themselves. But the trade among Africans is less than 20%. So what we then, our leaders realize is if we do not start by addressing that, because currently, for example, as indicated, Namibia is part of SACO, and that is a common union that we have with South Africa, Lesotho, Botswana, and Swaziland. And yes, we are part of SADC. But between SACO plus Mozambique, we have got economic partnership agreement with the EU. And that helps us to trade, for example, Namibia trades more with China and trades more with the EU than we trade with our neighboring countries. And therefore, what was important is how can we as Africans trade among ourselves? And we need to start with what we have. What do we import as African? What do we consume? What do we make that other countries in Africa are also producing? And that is really where we started. So coming back to Namibia, around about 2019, our late president appointed a body called the High-Level Panel on the Namibian Economy. And he said, since 2015, our economy was really struggling. Can we find out why and how can we get out of that dip? And what we then did later was to appoint Professor Ricardo Hausmann, he's from Harvard, and together with the government, we worked on a 3-year journey. And the 3-year journey is just really what happened. Namibia was doing well between 2000 and 2014, but 2015, we were not doing well. How can we go back to that formula? And to him, the Harvard Growth Lab realized, don't go back to that formula because it's about commodities, it was government spending, mostly non-tradable, so you need to diversify. So we then went on the journey of our diversification strategy, for which they helped us. And what we need to consider is, yes, what do we consume, what do we have, and what do we currently produce? And therefore, what they call the long jumps, what long jumps can we make? Mm-hmm. And what does Africa have? A youth population. What do we have? Minerals. What do we have? Energy. So how can we have minerals and energy, but we don't have refining and processing capabilities on the continent? So, and also, how do we consume a lot of vehicles, electronics, but our production levels are low? So one of the flagship kind of project also of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is about automotive. The automotive industry is considering how do we make 5 million vehicles in Africa by the year 2035. But then we need to stop gray imports and second-hand imports. So there's a lot of work that we need to do, but the good thing is that our leaders have got a strategy at continental level, but also at country level, we are looking at those strategies of really, like I normally speak to some of my colleagues in Europe, especially from Namibia, so we don't want to be anybody's immigration challenge. But today we have got technology. Jobs can be exported by doing services in Namibia where we have got a lot of youth, where our literacy rate is high. How can we serve the European market, the US, the American market, and Asian market while spending time at home with our families and in our societies in Namibia?
You seem to have the plan figured out quite well in your mind and obviously on your plans. What is your biggest challenge to move the country forward?
Some of the biggest challenge, and that is actually probably one of what we are realizing our successes, is the collaboration between the public and the private sector. So, and I say that I'm probably one of the privileged ones because I worked in the private sector for about 24 years. I'm now in government for about 4 years, so I'm not an expert yet. But one of the reasons why I'm in government is because I realized there is a disconnect, especially in Namibia and in Africa, in the collaboration between the public and the private sector. And therefore, many times when the government plans, they plan for government, and then the private sector does something else, but we don't integrate that collaboration. So one of the projects that we then did with Harvard Growth Lab is something we call productivity task forces. And recently, I think Cambridge University issued a printing document about Namibia productivity task forces, which is really where we bring together a certain sector. So we started with what we call the high value fruit. We have gone into the beef beef value chain, which is also one of Namibia's import. And then what do? We bring the public and the private sector together. So the private sector will tell government, we can be more productive if government can help us, get us market access, change this policy, act here, and so forth. And of course, government will say, we will do that, but we want the private sector to focus on providing quality jobs. So having that dialogue between the public and the private sector has been a challenge, and formalizing it has been a challenge, and it is one of the kind of the programs that we are starting to see. How can we be in one room, have a dialogue, and make sure that the public and the private sector are headed in the same direction as far as development of Namibia is
But I can say it's not only in Africa that there is challenges, in the developed world as well. So, Your Excellency, South Africa this year is heading the G20. And last time we met, it was a couple of days after you hosted G20 in your country. You seemed optimistic. Based on the latest developments, I would like to ask you if you remain optimistic about the future of international relationships, and of course, how do you think your leadership in South Africa's leadership in G20 will help the economic growth of the continent?
Yeah, no, we remain optimistic, and as you are aware, our theme of the G20 remains solidarity, equality, and sustainability. It's a theme that seeks to harness global will and capabilities to confront the enormous challenges that the world is facing: disaster management, ensuring debt sustainability, mobilizing finance for just transition, and harnessing what my sister also spoke about here, the critical minerals for inclusive growth and development, which Africa is endowed with. So we believe this team will be able to help the global community to work together to put at a prime multilateral platform to resolve global challenges. The EU itself, the African Union, the G20 itself as a platform, the United Nations. So despite the challenges that are emerging, and I think that as you are referring to them, they are pointing to the reality that there can't be unilateralism in the global trade and in the global economy. And it's becoming obvious to everyone that no one can win a trade war. We all need each other. And these multilateral platforms that are there exist to harmonize trade relations, exist to harmonize geopolitical issues. And we see our role as a president of the G20, not only to help the whole world to harmonize, to work together in multilateral platforms, but also to shine a spotlight on the African continent as an opportunity area, to shine a spotlight on the African continent, particularly on critical minerals, value addition in the continent, industrialization, and to gear global financial institutions to be transformed to respond to the challenges that the continent has. We see it as unjustifiable that while we are the most affected by climate change, the African continent only receives less than 3% of the global climate financing for mitigating factors. So the financial institutions of the globe must be transformed to respond to this. So the G20 platform will help us to advocate, to challenge these issues, including the fact that we receive less than 10% of development from these financial institutions across the globe. So this G20 has come at the right time for us as South Africa, but also for the African continent. Hence, we have also invited some of the African countries, Nigeria, the biggest economies in the continent, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Algeria, Egypt, and Angola as the chairperson of the African Union. And we have also invited the regional bodies for the continent so that that voice can be amplified and be part of the message to the global community.
This is a great vision, much needed for Africa and for the world. Unless you visit the African countries, and this I'm talking about from a personal experience, you cannot understand how climate crisis affects disproportionately the developing world versus the developed world. So it's a great endeavor that you have taken. May I ask, being the first African country that is leading G20, how would you measure success after the completion of this difficult task? Do you?
Yeah, we will measure it when we see clear indicators from the financial institutions changing their financing formula for climate change to mitigate the challenges that the continent is facing with regards to climate change. We will also measure it when we see the global governance at artificial intelligence, that the African continent should not only just be consumers of products at AI, but as she said, we are the only continent with a youthful population. So it means we should also be at the center of innovation in the globe, not just in the continent. And that youthful population should be a reservoir for the whole world to change technology, to be at the center of innovation, to be at that level. So we will measure it in this context when we see that central role of the continent being put in global financial institutions, being put in artificial intelligence, being put in the climate change responsiveness. As you have said, disproportionately affected, but less financed by our institutions. I mean, these institutions, they all belong to us. We are members of these institutions. We are shareholders of the World Bank, of the IMF, and all these institutions that are aimed to finance, but the financing is disproportionate. So these are issues that we want to see at the end of the G20 being responded to. But also, as you have said, with the emerging challenges, we will also want to see the G20 emerging firmly affirming multilateral institutions as the prime institutions for the world to resolve global challenges. There must be no unilateralism.
I wish you all the success for these quite ambitious objectives, and I'm confident with your determination that you will do progress towards them. Ms. Uaandja, Namibia is a special country. Every country is special in the world. It considers themselves special, but it's a beautiful country, I understand, politically quite stable. The president is a woman. The vice president is a woman. The Speaker of the Parliament is a woman. And as you told me yesterday, 50% of the Parliament members are women as well. Is that right? How do you do this?
Namibia, we got our independence about 35 years ago, and it is from my colleagues here country, so South Africa. The Honorable Minister, I apologize for that.
No, it's a historical fact.
Yes. So we are the little brother or the little sister to South Africa, and we were a colony of South Africa for 35 years. Of course, the apartheid regime that was in South Africa was also the one that was operating in Namibia at the time. And I'm saying that because we come from a place where there was exclusion that was practiced, whether it was based on race, whether it was divide across tribal grounds, whether it was practices between genders, we come from that type of exclusivity and exclusion. And therefore, one thing that I think our forefathers did when we were fighting for liberation struggle, it's really a commitment to inclusivity. Our leaders always said that, of course, when we have got exclusivity, it kind of spells disunity, and it spells crisis and strife. And therefore, inclusion is better. So the ruling party, which is the SWAPO party, what they then did a few years ago is practice something, they call it the zebra style. It's maybe something more like my dress, where you've got black, white, and male, female. So what they decided is when they putting together their parliament list and they vote, there's a list for men and there's a list for women. And therefore, when they do, then they combine that one-on-one. And after that one, then therefore they started empowering women in leadership. And with that one, we have seen quite a number of women, therefore, yes, coming and taking up leadership position. And therefore, yes, today we are in a country where our president is the first female president that we have, and she's got more than 50% of her cabinet. But what we do is we are not women leaning, we are just about inclusivity. And what happens is if there is more women than men, then we ask, where is the missing man? And so forth. And it's a country, therefore, that one will want to be, because we want to make sure that if somebody is capable, if you can show that you can bring quality, you can bring competence, you can bring performance to the table, then you know that you are included and you will also be able to have your seat at the table. So great times for us in Namibia. Our president just took office in March, so she's not yet a week, but a month in office, but we can already see that the country is excited and there's definitely a lot that we are bagging on.
Thank you very much. Very inspirational. I don't know about you, I'm extremely excited from the discussion, from your presence here. I see we have 2 minutes, so I won't even have a closing. I will leave you with your final thoughts. Ms. Uaandja, just your final thought, and then His Excellency, and then we close this beautiful session.
No, I think my final thought is yes, of course, Africa has been lagging behind. But we believe that we have got a lot to contribute to the challenges that are facing the world. One of the programs that we have as Namibia is really about greening our economy and contributing to the greening of the world economy. We have been driving our green industrialization, green hydrogen, and therefore there is a lot that we can contribute in that regard. And we're looking to form smart partnership. We have a close memorandum of understanding with the EU, and we therefore look forward to trading and investing between Namibia and various EU countries, of course, in addition to what we are doing with our fellow African countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Excellency?
No, thank you very much. We look forward to see you in South Africa, coming, and also the Southern African region and the whole African continent, to invest in the various sectors of our economy, infrastructure, industries, and many sectors that are available on our website, and energy, transportation, logistics, you name them. The opportunities are just endless. But also the southern tip of the continent, South Africa, is also one of the most beautiful. You can also visit for leisure and to bask in the sun. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. So we are looking forward to see you there, but we will continue to contribute to the global governance, and we also look forward to host your leaders in our G20 summit later this year in November in Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, esteemed guests. Thank you, everyone.